Okay, so for part 2 of equations of lines, we are looking at page 37 in your workbook, lines in slope-intercept form. Write the equation 2x minus 3y equals 6 in slope-intercept form. Find the slope and y-intercept of the line. So remember back in the other section, we were saying, I was telling you that you could figure out slope based on what your equation was. You can look at it. But that's if it's in slope-intercept form, but it's not right now. It's in standard or general form. So we need to solve for y. And you've done this before. Use this skill in literal equations. So let's try to see if you could do that part, and then we'll pick out the slope and y-intercept. So pause the video and see if you can solve for y in terms of x and the other stuff, and then I'll go through it. Okay, so we have 2x minus 3y equals 6. So we want to subtract the 2x from both sides. So we have minus 3 equals negative 2x. I'm just going to put it in the right position right there. Plus 6. So what I'm doing here is subtract 2x, subtract 2x. They're not like terms, so I can't combine them. And I know I'm going for this form, right? Y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to position that through commutativity because I am taking my sign with it. It's okay. I can switch them around. And then I want to divide both sides by negative 3. Now be careful here because you need to divide this whole thing by negative 3. Or you could think of it as every term divided by negative 3. So this splits apart, or you could kind of split your addition back out. Negative 2x over negative 3 plus 6 over negative 3. So be real careful how you do that. Sometimes I just say divide every term by negative 3 on both sides. In this specific situation, that's how we're working it. It's kind of like distributing through by a negative 1/3. That's really what we're doing. This multiplying by negative 1/3 would be the exact same thing as dividing by negative 3. And that's what allows us to do that. Now we want to simplify this. So we have y equals negative 2x over negative 3 would just be 2/3 x. And then 6 divided by negative 3 is a minus 2. So that's our final answer there. Y equals 2/3 x minus 2. Actually, not quite our final answer. We do have this part 2, find slope and y-intercept of the line. So slope M is 2/3 and the y-intercept is the point. It's negative 2, but we want to write it as a point a lot of times. 0, negative 2. So that is part 2 of our answer. So we had 2 different pieces to look at. Okay, so this next one is example 3.10. Graph y equals 3x minus 1 by using the slope and y-intercept. So we know that m equals 3, or actually 3 over 1. So we know we have a positive 3 means we have a rise of 3 units. And then we know we have a run right of 1 unit. The y-intercept says minus 1, but that's really like plus negative, right? So our b equals negative 1. Therefore, y-intercept is the point 0, negative 1. So we can go ahead and plot this point. So we have a starting place. Okay, so that's our y-intercept, 0, negative 1. And then I'm going to go up 3 units, 1, 2, 3, and end up there. But I'm not going to really write anything yet. And then I'm going to go over to the right 1. Now that's where I plot my point. That's a hit. Okay, so this is my slope triangle here. Now if I want to get another point, I have to now use the new point and go up 3 over 1. A lot of people really love this method. If I run out of paper, I can do the exact opposite. I can go down 1, 2, 3 over left 1. So I'm doing the exact opposite because remember, m also equals -3 over -1 would be an equivalency. And then I just go ahead and make my line. Never mind, it's just a little weird on the tablet, but okay, so that's my line. I have 1 point labeled. I'm going to label one other. So I have 1 is my x value right here, and 2 is my y value. So just label 2 points always, especially on a quiz or a test. And then make sure you add arrows. Since there's no domain restriction. Domain is just what our x's can be. All right, so always do that. Even if I don't put the directions, you should get the gist. So in the electronic homework or sometimes where you see things generated by a computer, it might not show the arrows really well. Example 311. Write the equation 3x minus 2y equals 2 in slope-intercept form. Find the slope and y-intercept of the line. Graph the line. So we're just taking those two skills and putting them together. So remember, we're trying to get it into this form first. Y equals mx plus b. So just solve that literal equation and then check what your slope is before you go ahead and graph. But I'm going to pause the video and I'll work that out, and then you can check on your answer. Okay, so part 1 of this answer is right here in the box. Your slope should come out to be 3/2. That's positive. And -1 is your b, so your y-intercept is 0, -1. So go ahead and now, if you got that right, go ahead and plot it. If you didn't, rework or go back through. What I did was just I subtracted 3x from both sides, then divided everything by -2 and simplified. So here's the final answer for that one with the graph. It looks very similar to the one above. I'm going to pull that down. So the one above had a slope of 3, but it had the same y-intercept. So you can see where it was steeper. And this one here has a slope of 3 over 2. So every time we go up 3, we're also going over 2. So it lays it just a little less steeply. Easier mountain to hike. And then I also put my points in and my arrows. So you can tell where, if I didn't have those points labeled and someone was grading, specifically me, it might be a little bit challenging to see those. So please do that, and that's very, very helpful. You can also check to make sure your work's correct on this by just making a little t-table based on the original, so you can verify over here. And we can just plug in, we could put 0 in for x and double check. So if we put 0 in, we would have, this would go to 0. So, oops, sorry, another way. This one would be 0. So we would have -2y equals 2. Divide both sides by -2. And we would get our -1. So that checks out. Likewise, we could do that for the y value. And we could put 0 in. So these are the ones I'm plugging in here. Could put 0 in for y, and then we get 3x equals 2, divide both sides by 3, and I would get 2/3. And we can just judge that right about here. That looks like a good match. This is a match, so yes, it does work. Okay, so you just check that your points match up to the original. Notice I didn't put those into what I had manipulated down here. I put them into the original. Okay, so just a tip there. Have a great day.